Hello everyone and welcome. This is Dawn. I'm so glad you could join me. I have another Halloween card for you. Today I thought I would play with some texture paste. I'll be using the Elvira Moonlighting die along with the brick pattern stencil that I've been dying to use this stencil since I got it. And I'm going to pair it up with the Spirited Sentiment. This stamp set is awesome. It just has lots of sentiments that you can use for a lot of different cards. So let's get started. The first thing I'm going to do is put the distressed texture paste on so it has time to dry while I make the rest of my card. I'm going to spray it with some pixie spray. This helps the stencil to stay in place while I put on my texture paste. I spray it on the back side and let it dry for about a minute. And then I lay it on top of a piece of white cardstock cut to 4.5 by 5.25 inches, and I press it down really good to make sure it stays in place. I'm going to use some distressed texture paste, the matte finish one, and I'm just going to take my spatula and just spread it all over the stencil. Now a little goes a long way. I don't take great care also to put it on. Actually, if I were to make the card again, I wouldn't go as close to the edge as I did. I would put it more in the middle, but I still like how it turned out. And once I spread it all over the stencil, I use my stencil pal that I just make one swipe in a downward motion to take any excess off. And all this excess you see, you can put it back in the jar. Then I'm just going to set this aside to dry while I make the rest of the card. I'm leaving the stencil on, but you can take it off and then put it back on. You just have to line it up where it was. Now I'm going to die cut the Elvira and the moon from some white cardstock, and then I'll die cut the lantern and the bats from black cardstock. And be careful not to lose her eyes, they're very small. Now I'm going to do some ink blending. I'm going to use my Distress Oxide inks. I'll be using the Fossilized Amber for the moon. I just use my ink blending brush until I have the desired look that I want. And then I'm going to come in with some black soot and just go around the edges just a little bit because I just want it to look like it's a little on the darker side. Then for Elvira's dress, I thought the Distress Oxide Villainous Potion was perfect. Even the name of the ink, which is pretty cool. So here I went around and colored in her dress, but then I quickly realized her arms were a little on the fragile side for ink blending. So I ended up die cutting another one from white cardstock and I glued it on top of the one I already colored. Then I went back and I ink blended it again. This time, instead of making circular motions though, I kind of blended in a downward motion. And then I just make sure to get close to her hairline, but not too close. Now you can definitely use Copic markers to color her in. I was just looking for something quick. And then to finish her off, I ink blended her hair with some Distress Oxide black soot until I had the desired look that I want. But I also put some black soot around the outer edge of her dress just to make it a little bit darker in certain spots. I colored Elvira's face very lightly with some E00 cotton pearl. And then I went ahead and I just die cut the top of the lamp heads from some white cardstock, and then I quickly ink blended them with some of the Fossilized Amber so I can make it look like the lights were on in the lamp. Now I'm going to ink blend a little bit of color onto this stencil over the texture paste. If you took off the stencil, be sure to put it back on at this point. So I just go over the paste with some Distress Oxide, the pumice stone, until I have the desired darkness that I want. Then when I'm done ink blending, I take the stencil off very gently. My paste wasn't completely dry, so a little bit of it did come up, but that's okay. I just used my fingers to press it back down. and I just love how it came out. I think it came out perfect. I went ahead and I trimmed the paper down to 3 7/8 by 5 inches, and then I cut a piece of white cardstock to 8 1/2 by 5 1/2, and then I scored it at 4 1/4. I adhered a piece of white craft foam to the back of the stenciled paper, and then I adhered it to the front of the card base. Then I start to assemble my card. I add the lantern on top of the texture paste and make sure to press down really good. I adhere Elvira onto the top of the card. I add her face, and then I'm going to use my jewel picker for her eyes since they are so tiny. I take a black Copic marker and I add a very small dot in the middle of both of her eyes, and then I make little lines above each eye for eyelashes. Next, I use my jewel picker to put the little inserts in for the lights, and then I adhere the moon in the top left hand corner of the card, making sure to press down really good. I finish off Elvira by using a white jelly roll pen. I put some white lines in her hair, and then I put some on her dress just for like little accents, just randomly putting them on her. There's no right or wrong place to put them. Using the Spirited Sentiments, I'm going to heat emboss it onto a piece of black cardstock. So first I prep my paper with my embossing powder bag, and then I stamp it with some Versamark ink. I pour gold embossing powder onto it, and when my heat tool is good and hot, I will heat emboss my sentiment. I trim the sentiment down to size, and then I put foam tape on the back of it and adhere it to the front of the card. To finish off the card, I add one bat near the moon, and I think the card came out great. And I just love the stenciled background with the texture paste. I think it gives the card that little extra wow factor. Okay, so that's going to complete my card for today. I would love for you to leave a comment below and let me know what you think of the card. And if you like the video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel so you don't miss out on any upcoming videos and new product releases. As always, thanks for stopping by and have yourself a wonderful day.